From New York. I am defense attorney Mr. Marmaduke. Marmaduke.
She's happy about that name, huh?
Well, I could say it right.
I'm also for defense, Mr. Crowell, Crowle.
I am the witness.
I am plaintiff's attorney, Mr. Anderson, Anderson.
Begins at 200 with me. Ready? Do you have any questions you would like to ask me or Mr. Anderson before we begin?
No, that's okay.
Just a little housekeeping. We did send out a notice to produce photographs as part of the deposition notice, and Mr. Anderson has provided those today for us in preparing for your deposition today. Did you review any documents?
Such as?
Well, police reports or any reports that you might have read over for the purpose of preparing for your deposition today.
I have seen the police report, but that was months ago. I haven't looked over it recently, no.
So you didn't look over anything specifically just to prepare yourself for your deposition today?
No.
Let me ask you, when was the last time you have been to the accident scene?
This afternoon.
This afternoon, and why did you go there?
I was curious as to the distance from the point I started out on that road to where the point the accident happened. I was just curious about the distance.
Did you actually take some measurements today?
I just clocked it in the car.
So you actually drove over the crossing then?
Right. I started out at McClatchy High School to the railroad tracks. I was curious as to that distance.
And were you able to clock that in the car?
On the odometer.
And what was the distance?
It was just over 2/10.
The distance from the crossing?
Right.
Did you measure other distances?
No, I didn't.
Did you actually get out of the car?
Not today, I didn't. About a week after the accident, I had gone back and just kind of walked it. I made no measurements, but just kind of walked it. You know, looked to where I had landed from where I had started and stuff.
Since that time after the week after the accident where you went out and walked out there, have you been out to that accident scene and actually got out of the car or walked the accident scene since then?
No.
How old are you now?
18. 19 on the 7th of July.
My understanding from Mr. Anderson is that you are about to go on a mission for your church, is that right?
Right.
When does that start?
It will be at least another 4 or 5 months before I actually go. It could be longer, but it won't be any sooner.
Do you know what you're going to be doing as far as your mission is concerned?
Just, you know, doing church work.
Do you know where you're going to be?
No, you send in your papers to Salt Lake and they send you papers back and say you're going here.
He doesn't know what his assignment is.
That's kind of how the railroad is too. Salt Lake tells us what to do. You're unassigned, but you're expecting in 4 or 5 months to be assigned someplace.
Yeah,
Is there a period of time which you will be committed to?
it will be 2 years.
Is this all on a voluntary basis?
Yes,
You don't get paid. They just give you a stipend. Is that it?
that's about it.
Have you thought about what you want to do when you complete your mission?
I kind of have 3 areas in mind. I'm not sure which one though yet.
Maybe you can tell me.
I don't want my mom and dad to see this. If I commit myself, they are going to expect something.
We want a stipulation that this won't be presented to his parents at least for 6 years.
Maybe we can place it in a locker vault.
I was thinking about, see, this is all going to depend on when I leave and get back from my mission too. But I've been thinking about trying to get into the CHP, coming back from my mission and going through 4 years of BYU through ROTC, and get into the Air Force pilot program, and then also just studying at BYU for a degree. I just haven't really decided what I'm going to do. I don't know what kind of schooling I'll have to have before getting into BYU.
These are just plans that you have.
Right.
Have you ever actually tried to get into any of the programs, either BYU or CHP?
No.
So on the day of the accident, you were 17.
Right.
On April 19, 2005, did you have a valid driver's license?
Yes.
And did that have a motorcycle endorsement?
Yeah.
What do you have to do to get a motorcycle endorsement?
I believe first you have to get a class 3 for a regular car, and after you have that, just go down, you take another written test, and that gives you your permit. And with your permit, you can only drive during the day with no passengers and no freeway traffic. And to get your license, you have to take an actual writing test through a little course, and once you pass that, they give you the license.
Do you know when you got your motorcycle endorsement?
It was the summer of '03.
How old would you have been in the summer of '03?
I had just turned 16 that summer. I turned 16 in July, and I believe I got the license in August.
So pretty much after you turned 16, just a little bit later.
Right.
Before the accident, I'm referring to April 19, 2005, did you have any tickets or traffic citations?
I'm going to object, irrelevant.
Well, I think you can object, but I'd still like an answer.
I'm going to instruct him not to answer the question.
Well, on what grounds? I think we are entitled to know his driver history.
I don't see how that is relevant to this incident.
Relevance is not the issue here. It's whether it's likely to lead to discoverable evidence. I think the judge can make a decision as to what's relevant and what's not relevant.
Relevancy is also something for the court to decide at the time of trial. This is discovery.
Just so that my objection as to its relevancy appears on the record.
Sure.
I think that's adequate,
Prior to the day of the accident that we're talking about,
right?
yes, I had.
And more than one?
I believe so.
Can you tell me when you got these and what you got these citations for?
I don't remember when. I just had, they were for speeding. You know, the speeding tickets I had, they all had been on the freeway, but none were over 10 miles an hour over the limit.
Were any of these citations received when you were operating a motorcycle?
All of them. I've never owned a car.
Prior to the accident, had you ever had your license suspended?
No.
Have you received any tickets or citations after the accident?
Yes.
And what were they for?
Speeding.
On a motorcycle again?
Right. One was for no rear turn signals. They haven't been fixed from the accident.
Have you had your license suspended after the accident?
Yeah.
And when was that suspended?
Well, in fact, it was suspended because of the accident.
You actually got a citation as a result of this accident?
Yes.
And what was that citation for?
I didn't get a citation, but what happened, it was a point against me on my driving record for the fact that I had been in an accident. And that had made a certain, I don't know if you know the point system on your driving record. They go by so many points against you in a certain amount of time, and if you get this certain amount of points, they suspend your license.
For how long was your license suspended?
3 months.
Just so the record is clear, it wasn't as a specific result of this one incident that your license was suspended?
Right, yeah, right.
I'm going to object. That is number one, a speculation on his part, and also it is a legal opinion.
Do you have a valid license now?
Yeah.
With a motorcycle endorsement?
Yeah.
Still riding motorcycles?
If I had one to ride, it got stolen about a month and a half ago.
I was going to ask you if you still owned the motorcycle.
It's still registered in my name.
Okay.
Hasn't been found.
Are you searching for it right now?
Yes, to answer your question.
Probably picking up tickets.
Right,
This was the same motorcycle?
right.
Prior to the April 19, 2005 accident, had you been involved in any other vehicle accidents?
Yes, a lady hit me on my motorcycle, my first motorcycle.
And when was this?
It was in August of '03.
Maybe you can just tell me what happened there.
I was passing her, and she decided to turn the corner while I was passing her to the right and just knocked me through the intersection.
You were trying to pass her on the right side?
Yeah,
Was there a lane on the right side?
no.
I take it you got a citation for that.
I don't remember if I did or not. I know I got a mark against me for the accident, but usually when you get a citation, you have to sign something, but I don't know.
When did you start riding motorcycles?
I first learned how to ride when I was 8 or 9, but as a regular thing, I didn't ride until after I was 16 and got my license.
I believe you owned the motorcycle that was involved in the accident, is that right?
Yes.
Did you own a motorcycle prior to that one?
I own 2 others.
And maybe you can tell me what type of motorcycles.
The first one I had when I was 16 was a '79 Kawasaki 400.
400, does that refer to engine size?
cc, cubic centimeters.
And then what happened to that motorcycle?
I had that for about a little less than a year, and I sold it, and I bought a Suzuki GS 550.
Okay,
And then I sold that a little less than a year later and bought the bike that we're talking about now. It's a Ninja, Kawasaki Ninja 600.
do you remember when you bought the Ninja?
It was April 4 of '05.
So about 11 days before the accident, right?
Right.
Are you experienced with riding in the dirt?
Is that a dirt bike?
I've never ridden dirt bikes, no.
Never ridden dirt bikes. Have you ridden street bikes in the dirt?
No.
So your motorcycle riding has been pretty much restricted to street riding.
Hasn't been restricted, but that's all I've ever done.
Ever raced competitively or competed in motorcycle events?
On Wednesday night at Sacramento Raceway, they have, public drags. I've been out there.
A public drag, is that just anybody can sign up and race?
If it has 2 or more wheels and has an engine, you can run it. It doesn't matter what it is.
You pay a fee?
Well, you have to pay $5 to get in the gate, but anybody pays that, whether you have a car or not. Just to get in and watch, you have to pay $5. It's optional whether you run a car. It's up to you.
How many times would you say you've done it?
About maybe 4 times, 5 times.
Were these all prior to the accident?
I'd never done it before the accident. I hadn't got into it until after the accident, after I rebuilt the bike.
When you bought your Ninja, were you planning on using it for the drags?
The reason I bought that bike was because of the way it looked. It was good looking.
What made it different than other ones, just out of curiosity?
I just liked the way it was styled. It just all depends on what you like.
I don't know much about motorcycles. I'm going to ask you how this compares just in the Kawasaki line. What is the biggest bike they have?
Biggest in terms of what?
Engine size?
The biggest they have is, I believe, a 1300. It's a big cruiser, like a Goldwing type bike.
Gold wing type bike?
It's got the big windshield and the little radio on it. Everything's electronic.
This is the RV of the motorcycle world?
Yes.
I drove a motorcycle once and I took out my in-laws fence with it.
Did you have any special equipment?
No, just came stock.
Just stock.
Well, at the time of the accident, it was stock.
Did you have any formal training in riding motorcycles?
No, I hadn't taken any motorcycle training courses. I was taught by my older brothers how to ride. I used to ride on and off, from the time I was 8 until the time I was 16, on their motorcycles around the neighborhood.
Has anybody taught you or told you the proper approach to crossing a railroad crossing?
Nobody's told me, but when I went to get my license, I studied the motorcycle handbook, and it tells you in there.
What did the motorcycle handbook tell you?
Just no matter how the angle of the road, just keep going with the road. Don't try and go across straight or anything, just go over them as if, they weren't there.
So just continue the direction on the road.
Right.
I take it prior to the accident, you went over various railroad crossings.
Every day on my way to work, I crossed a set of tracks.
Which set of tracks would that be?
There on Florin Road, just about a mile east of 24th Street.
Right there by Burbank?
Yeah.
Prior to the accident, had you ever encountered any problems in crossing a railroad crossing?
No.
I want to refer you to the crossing here at Freeport Boulevard, which is the one involved in the accident. Prior to this accident, had you driven across that crossing before?
I have.
And is that something you did on a frequent basis?
No.
Mr. Sternberg, Sternberg.
I'm also defense Mr. Allen, Allen.
I'm the witness.
I am plaintiff's attorney, Mr. Hannon, Hannon. Okay, starts with me. Ready? Have you and she discussed the accident at all?
Well, I was told not to discuss it, so I really didn't bring nothing up to them. If they brought it up, then I would just go along with them. That's what I was told, because they just got out of the hospital. Or they were in the hospital and we weren't to mention nothing about it.
What I'm interested in is anything she might have had to say, not necessarily what you said to her, but what she said to you.
No, she didn't say nothing to me about the accident.
Did she ever tell you she couldn't remember how the accident had happened?
I didn't ask her.
Did she indicate to you that it appeared that Mr. Clark wasn't driving safely?
No. The only thing she said to me that was prior to the accident was that she was sorry, and I don't know what for or nothing, but
She said that prior to the accident or after the accident?
after the accident, that's what I meant. Because of the accident, she's sorry or something.
Did you give any statements to anybody about the accident?
Yes.
Who was that?
Insurance company and the police officer.
After the truck disappeared with Mr. Clark never to be seen again in one piece, did you have anything else to drink?
Yes, I did.
And how much was that?
2 more beers. There was a 6-pack between 3 of us, and we were waiting for him, and so we just dusted it while we were waiting.
What? You what?
We finished the 6-pack while we were waiting. Me, Sue, and Jolene.
I think it's dusted.
Did you have anything else to smoke during that period of time?
No,
When did you actually show up at the hospital?
I don't know.
You were driven there by Jolene or Sue.
Jolene.
What's Sue's last name?
I don't know.
At the time of the accident, do you know how old she was?
Sue?
Yes,
I think she's the same age as me.
which at that time would have been 18.
No, 20.
Either the night of the party or the day after, the day of the accident, did you tell anybody who was at your house to leave for any reason?
The day after the accident?
No, let's break it down. The night of the party, did you ask anybody to leave or tell them to leave?
No,
How about the day of the accident? Same question.
no.
At the time the first joint was lit, at whose suggestion was it that one be rolled or one be lit?
I think it was Renee's.
Did you tell him, no, don't do that, or no, you can't do it, or go do it outside?
No,
How about the same with any alcohol that was consumed? Did you tell anybody not to do it?
no.
Did you tell them, go ahead, there's a beer in the fridge, you can have it?
Yeah,
Who was that?
the people that were there,
Does that include Mr. Clark?
Yeah. Well, he had helped himself. We all helped ourselves really, but when those three came in, I asked them if they wanted one.
And the three being Bert's friend and Lindsay.
No, Renee. Lindsay came in and I offered him a beer.
Were any criminal charges brought against you personally as a result of this automobile accident?
Criminal charge?
Or charges?
No, not that I recall.
At the time of the accident, how old was Mike Clark?
I think he was 19.
At the time of the accident, you were 20?
Yeah, because I think he's a little younger than me, just by a couple months or something.
Have you ever talked to your mother about the party that you had the night before the accident?
Have I talked to her about it?
Yes.
Yes, I have.
Have you talked to her about what went on at the house the day of the accident?
Yes.
Did you ever tell her that when you gave the keys to Mike Clark or allowed him to use the car, that he appeared to you to be drunk?
Run that by me again?
Sure. Have you ever told your mother that at the time Mike Clark had the keys to the truck, he appeared to you to be drunk?
No.
You never told her that?
No, I didn't tell her that.
How about the same question with regard to being stoned?
No, I didn't tell her that either.
Dave, why don't you carry the ball for a while? I may be done.
Why don't we take a seventh inning stretch? Mr. Vieira, I represent Alyssa Hawkins in this matter, and I'm David Sternberg. I'm going to ask you some questions about the accident that happened on January 1, 2003, and the events before and after. You had known Michael Clark for about 7 or 8 years before this accident?
Yes.
Had you gone to school with him?
Yes.
Same high school?
No, junior high.
Junior high. Were you acquainted when the two of you were in high school?
We were acquainted, but it was like only when he would come down to Reading. He went to school up in Reading, high school.
Reading.
Up in Reading, yeah. And I went to high school down at Sunnyvale High. And whenever he would come down for vacation or something, we would get together and go to parties or whatever.
While the two of you were in high school, how frequently would you see each other?
Basically, whenever there was a holiday or something, and there was like at least a weekend and a holiday that he can come down and spend time with his mother, and in that process, I would be able to see him.
When he was living in Reading, attending high school, was he living with his father?
Yes, he was.
His parents are divorced.
I imagine so.
His mother lives in this area and his father in Reading. Is that it?
Yes.
When the two of you were in high school, would you have get-togethers where the two of you would drink beer and smoke an occasional marijuana cigarette?
Yes.
Did you have a car when you were in high school?
No, I don't think so.
When did Michael Clark move down to this area from his father's residence?
When he got out of high school,
About how long ago was that? What year would that have been?
01.
I understand that from talking to your mother, you didn't finish high school.
Yes, I did. I went to New Start and got my diploma through New Start, adult education.
And Michael graduated from high school in 2001 in Reading.
Yeah.
When did you first start working at Toys R Us?
Oh, wow.
I'll withdraw that, it's not that material. How long had you and Mike Clark worked at Toys R Us prior to this accident?
Before the accident,
Yes.
we had worked there about a year.
What was your occupation there?
Maintenance.
And how about Mike Clark?
I guess you would call him dock clerk, receiving clerk.
Did you both generally have the same shift in the year before the accident?
Yes, day shift.
And in the year before the accident occurred, about how many times had you, Mike Clark, and others gone out during a lunch break and smoked a reefer while employed at Toys R Us?
We just like started near the accident. We didn't really do it at first, but as time went on, it seemed more easier to do than it really was. I think about 4 or 5 times, not too many times.
Maybe half a dozen times or so?
Possible, yeah.
After Mike Clark would smoke a reefer, did he ever tell you what sensation he would feel after smoking a reefer at lunch break? What sensation he would feel if he ever described that to you?
I don't know how to answer that question.
Did he ever tell you how it affected him?
Well, the only thing he would really tell me is like he got a buzz or something, and that basically we would leave it at that.
How would you interpret that when he says, I got a buzz? How do you feel as you understood that term?
Well, you think you would be able to feel the drug and it wouldn't be as much as a depressant because there wasn't that much of it to make it a depressant, but you would be able to feel the effects of it.
So after you would smoke, let's move on. After you would smoke a reefer at noontime while you were at Toys R Us, would you get a buzz?
Yes, I would.
And you're going to have to help me a little bit, but when you got a buzz, what did you feel? What was the sensation?
It's hard to explain. You feel, I guess, I don't know, you would feel like more happier, I guess, celebrating or something.
Make you a little high?
Well, it's like what you do, you mean by high, you know, it's hard to explain. What we consider high is when you have smoked a couple of them and you feel like you may not have control, but when you got a buzz, you feel like you've got control, but yet you can feel the effects of it.
How many drags would give you a buzz? 7 or 8?
When you say you,
I'm talking about Dennis right now. Would 7 or 8 drags give you a buzz?
Object to the form, it's ambiguous. You haven't defined the quality or the quantity of the marijuana.
Can you answer that?
Okay, of any we had or just certain,
Average.
the average, let's say it would be about 7 or 8 hits to catch a buzz.
Then if you had 15 or 16 drags off an average marijuana, then what would you feel? You.
Well, I will start to feel more of the effect of it and I don't know, I would seem more loose, you might say.
And by loose, can you put that in other words? Exhilarated, extremely happy, extremely low?
Well, no, it's nothing extreme. It's to the point of where you're happy and stuff and you just feel more like stoned. You feel more of the effect of it and I guess you would hesitate on a lot of things like, I can't explain it.
Let's put it this way. If you yourself had 14 to 16 drags on average marijuana, would you feel as sharp as if you hadn't had any?
No, you wouldn't feel that sharp, no.
In your observations of Mike Clark, if he had 14 to 16 drags, would he be as sharp as if he hadn't had any?
No.
After 14 to 16 drags, would you be stoned?
Depending upon the quality of the weed, yeah. I probably would if it was good weed. I would feel stoned.
If it was homegrown marijuana, would you feel stoned at 14 to 16 drags?
No, I would feel more or less in between a buzz and stoned. Like I could feel it, but it's not really doing anything.
Then when you feel stoned, how do you feel then?
You feel more free, I guess you might say. Things seem to come to you easier. It's hard to explain a feeling like that.
Are you as responsible when you're stoned as when you're
I'm going to object to that.
He personally,
withdraw it? Would you personally feel that you should be driving a car when you're stoned?
as you've been using that term,
Yes.
No, I don't really think it's right to drive a car when you're stoned.
If you had 2 or 3 beers and 14 to 16 drags of homegrown marijuana, what do you feel then?
Shouldn't that be put in a certain space, certain period of time? It seems to me the question is ambiguous as it's phrased.
What I'm trying to get at is just how it affects him. He mentioned that he's had the situation where he has smoked a couple of marijuana cigarettes before and he has had 2 or 3 beers at the same time, and what I'm trying to get at is when you do that, what's your condition?
why don't you ask him what he felt the day of the accident at some point after having consumed a number of beers?
I'll probably get to that right now. I'd like to ask this one.
Are you saying sequentially? Mr. Vieira would start having some beers and over a continuing period as say contrasted with an interval or whatever?
I see your point. I'm talking about after the occurrence of having smoked 14 to 16 drags off a homegrown marijuana cigarette and after having had 2 or 3